let's go ahead and say a prayer for Tony Ferguson's career because David Goggins is gonna get this nigga smoked. So David Goggins is now training Tony Ferguson for his upcoming bout with Paddy Pimblett. And if you guys have been watching, and basically they've been doing like super endurance training, where they even got Tony Ferguson throwing up. And I'm looking at this shit, I'm saying, oh, this is bad. This is really bad. Because once again, as much as I hate to say, David Goggins, he has come a long fucking ways from the fat guy who couldn't read to this inspiring figure, motivational speaker, ultra marathon running, who's gonna carry the logs, nigga, who is out here helping to inspire the world. But that inspiration, I don't know if that's necessarily gonna be a good thing for Tony Ferguson. So David Goggins has been torturing his body for shit damn near a decade plus. And Tony Ferguson has been doing MMA for a goddamn 2 decades too, almost. And the real problem with this is that the training that is required for MMA is not necessarily good, or doesn't necessarily kind of collide or glue well with David Goggins' method, which is just train your body until you fucking pass out and die. Because the body needs to have recovery, adaptation, and other particular things. So what happens is, this could be my prediction, Tony Ferguson, he's going to be so beat down and so worn out by the time he gets to Paddy Pimblett. I don't think his body's going to be able to make it. I don't think he's going to be able to make it to the fight. But he will make it to the fight because he's a fucking savage. And he's going to get smoked by Paddy Pimblett because there should be a real like training camp, a design, not just workout until you fucking throw up. That's a terrible idea for any type of athlete. Like, you should only be throwing up if you haven't done shit or you're not in high conditioning. So the idea that Tony Ferguson is all fucked up, throwing up, can barely keep up with David Goggins is really a terrible sign that he's redlining his body every fucking day. And David Goggins says something where, oh man, for you guys who are criticizing Tony Ferguson, he doesn't have enough rest recovery. He slept for 8 hours. It was like, yeah, I get that he slept for 8 hours, but the man's down there almost 40. And he has a whole lifetime of combat experience. And this is the problem with not having good coaches. And this is one of the things that Tony has suffered with, where Tony was essentially running his own training camps. And if you listen to Tony's thing, like, yeah, that's good to do when you're a young guy and you're like running your own thing and you're just fighting. But when you get to the height of the height, you have to have like basically a scientific method for how you go about training. Because it needs to be regimented and you need to have certain like periods that you train and adapt for. And George St. Pierre and Faris Sahab, they talked about training and how to make sure that you don't like kill yourself in training. And one of the things that GSP always talked about, he's like, I have to fight for 25 minutes. So what I do is I train as hard as I can go for 25 minutes, then I shut it down. Same thing with Faris Sahabi. If you can do 10 pull-ups, you do 4. You do 4 every day until you get to the point where you can do 5 and you don't feel any problems. And you get to the point where you do 6 and you don't do any problems. And you constantly build up the volume, because it's way better to be doing your activities at 100% as opposed to being broken down and going from 100% to 80 to 60 to 40 to 20. Then try to recover. You only get to 60. Then you go 60, 40, 20, 10. Then you recover 40, 20, 10, 0. And then you start running yourself into a deficit. So if Tony doesn't actually take some time to rest and let his body recover from all this, he's going to go into that fight fucking broken. He's going to get his shit worn out. That cardio tank's not going to mean anything because his CNS is going to be fucking fried. And so I'm calling it right now. Tony Ferguson, KO first round by Paddy Pimblett, just due to exhaustion. He might even pass out in the ring. Who knows? I think I'm almost positive he's coming to with some injuries. And so this should be a lesson to all fighters. Don't let idiots fucking train you. Go get a professional coach. Please, just get a professional coach. Find a team of people who actually know what they're doing, that are professional, and train your actual sport. I hope Tony's doing like some type of pads and mitts, and he's not just doing the David Goggins method for the whole fight. But you know what? Knowing Tony, he's crazy enough that he might fucking do that. So shit, man. Pray for Tony, y'all. Pray for Tony.